गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today we're going to listen to the story of Indian warfare. And it's a very exciting and a rich story. It's a story of our heritage. And to talk us through this and give all his views about this with me is Colonel Ajay Singh. Ajay, welcome to Gana Shot, and I'm looking forward personally for the history of our warfare, which you have so nicely compiled.
Thank you very
uh,
much. Such a pleasure being on Gunner's Shot like it always is.
yeah, and I was just telling everyone, we have such a rich history, we have such a rich heritage, and I think we need to maximize it and understand it. And more often than not, we we tend to underplay our own achievements. um, you've done a fabulous job in putting all this together, uh, and we put the preamble of this whole story out. I want you to go deliberately and explain
Sir,
what the entire story of this thing is. But before that, how did you get involved with this? Let me ask you that question.
so that is, it all began around 10 years ago, 2011, when I was looking to read up on books on Indian warfare. And that's when I discovered that there's so little information which we Indians have about the own Indian way of war fighting, our battles. Everything is taken from an outsider's perspective, the Mughal perspective, the British perspective, foreign perspective. Even say a battle between Alexander and Porus, it is a totally Greek account. So that is when I started researching and reading up the battles a little bit more. I started going to the sites where the battles actually took place. And from there, I drew inferences how the battles would have been fought. So all history is inferences because
Yeah.
so much of it has been lost. So much of it has been lost. And I tried to piece it together, sir, in two books. One was my first one, which I wrote with my wife, called The Battles That Shaped Indian History. And the other was India's battlefields from Kurukshetra to Balakot, which covers 42 of the battles. And in doing so, sir, I have tried to piece together a story of Indian warfare as seen through Indian eyes. और जैसे आपने कहा था, we have got viewpoints from across the world, from outsiders. But providing an Indian perspective is what I've set out to do.
That's fantastic because it's a heritage which we have, such a rich heritage, and most of us tend to underplay it and even at times not even look at it and feel bad about it.
Yes.
But we have some of the best war fighters going around. So, in this
Yes.
context, I'd like you to lead the whole show, and I'm putting your presentation on. Just take
Uh,
off.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the viewers who have also responded to General Shankar when he put up this preliminary video earlier on. I know there are a lot of observations कि आपने ये battle नहीं cover किया, वो नहीं cover किया. The only reason why I have not covered all the battles is because in 15 minutes, I could just give an overview of what are the major aspects of Indian
Yeah,
war. But as we go ahead, I will try. Even now, it's not possible. With 1 hour, me and General Shankar will have to talk for 3 days to just touch the tip of the iceberg. But we will try to walk you through the story of Indian warfare. And, sir, like you said, if we have to tell a story, we must start with all stories at the beginning, where it began. Now, Indian war fighting, ladies and gentlemen, I look upon India as a civilization, a great, rich civilization over 7 to 10,000 years old. Geographically, politically, India is in its present form. But in these 7 to 10,000 years, India was a geographical entity. It was a geography. Look at this. We were lucky. We have got the Himalayas on one side, the sea on three sides, and on our northwest, the Hindu Kush Mountains, with just six passes going through it. And ladies and gentlemen, this geography of India tells you the history of India. Entire story of India has been dominated by two factors. One was these six passes were neglected, allowing raiders to come in. The other bigger mistake, the beautiful sea, the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal, was neglected. For all our glory, India never became a maritime power, allowing maritime powers from Europe to come into India. And this geographical aspect is what has shaped the history of India. But now, when we talk about Indian warfare, let's start at the beginning. The story, all of us, I mean, there are battles which went in before that. The Ramayana is for one. But the battle which has influenced Indian psyche has been the Battle of Kurukshetra, which we are all aware of in different forms. But, ladies and gentlemen, the thing that has hit us strongest about the Battle of Kurukshetra, that 18-day war, which wiped out 3 million of the male population of that time, it taught us into almost 3,000 years later, two aspects still stand out. One is it was a dharmic war. We will not go into the fact that none of the fighters actually fought a dharmic war except for maybe Karna. But yes, it was fought as a just righteous war. Perhaps is that the reason why Indians have always been just and correct in their war fighting techniques? We had never been invaders. Yeah, this and the Battle of Kalinga, these did influence Indian thinking because we were never aggressors. The other was the cult of hero worship, of heroes and hero worship. You know, when you read the battle more carefully, you will find everything revolves around the heroes, very little around the concepts of war fighting. Little. And gentlemen and ladies, that's one of the reasons India and Indians have produced great individual warriors. We've been the best soldiers in the world. But somehow, our concepts of war fighting was somehow relegated to the back. These little aspects have changed the Indian war fighting psyche. And when India evolved, India, the great glorious civilization, evolved, our first battle with the outsiders. When I say outsiders, I'm not talking race, religion, anything. I'm talking people who came from outside the Indian subcontinent. The first was in 326 BC by Alexander the so-called Great, who had taken his army from Europe, Africa. He crossed the Hindu Kush mountains through those two passes, the Bolan and Gomal passes, and came on the banks of the Jhelum River to fight whom? In the background, I can hear a chorus of voices to say, Porus. Ladies and gentlemen, this great son of India who fought Alexandra on the banks of the Jhelum River was not named Porus. Porus was the name the Greeks gave him. He was Kumar, the king of the Purus. And that first battle actually set the tone for Indian war fighting. Neighboring rulers, the Raja of Taxila and others, actually sided with Alexandra against Porus. That infighting has been a bane of Indian warfare. But at the end of the day's war fighting, the Indians broke the famous great phalanx not once but three times. Porus lost both his sons in the battle. And at the end, when the truce was called, the Greeks say the Greek that they had defeated Porus. Porus did hand over the sword. But ladies and gentlemen, what was the outcome of this battle? The outcome of the battle was after the battle of the Jhelum River, Alexander's troops mutinied. They refused to go further to the Sutlej, to the Ganges, to the Bay of Bengal, where he felt the world was ending, because they said, I'm quoting the Greek historians, they're the bravest and most courageous warriors we have fought in 3 continents. And they're larger enemies like this, they refuse to go forward. Alexander withdrew from India, and it got another even greater spin-off, because he had left a region, Seleucus, to oversee the kingdoms he had already taken over. That was largely in modern day Pakistan. And there, Chanakya, I would say the first time the cry of Indian nationalism was raised by Chanakya and Chandragupta Maurya. When he said, okay, he told the neighboring the kingdoms, we will fight with each other later on. First, let's get rid of this Greek from here. ये बाहर वाले को निकाल देते हैं. They removed Seleucus. Chandragupta married his beautiful daughter, and the Mauryan Empire arose, which went on for 500 to 700 years. Look at the map, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to share a lot of maps with you, because these great empires, the Mauryans, look, the Guptas, the Cholas, which flourished in the first millennia. I call this the lost millennia. Not for any other reason, but because the glory of that civilization has been lost in history. We do not have the records of it. In that 1,500 years to almost 2,000 years, India was invaded. I mean, it was a norm of the time. The Shakas came, Kushans came, Huns came. In each case, they were pushed back with bloody noses. What I want to bring out, ladies and gentlemen, is India as a civilization was not just rich, prosperous, and far thinking. We were militarily a strong civilization. And this continued for 2,000 years. Without being aggressors, we maintained our own. And look at Nalanda. The change actually began coming, gentlemen, around the 7th century. You know, when the Arabs conquered Sindh, and it took them 80 years of 12 land expedition and 16 naval expeditions to just establish a foothold. Why am I telling you this? To again bring out this, that Indian history has a rich military tradition as well. The raids came, yes, they were repulsed as well. But the lasting change, which I call in my book the first turning point of Indian history, came when, unfortunately, Muhammad Ghori defeated the Rajputs under Prithviraj Chauhan in the Second Battle of Tarain. Ghori had been defeated twice before, not 21 times as it said out, twice. One in the first Battle of Tarain, one in the Battle of Gidarbaha, and sent back. Tarain, unfortunately, the second battle was lost due to overconfidence on the part of Prithviraj Chauhan. And that set a bad trend in which the Sultanate was established in Delhi. Ladies and gentlemen, mark my words carefully. I'm not saying the Sultanate was established in India. It was established in Delhi. It was the seat of power. But Indian kingdoms were flourishing in the east. In the south, the Vijayanagar Empire was rising up. The Rajputs were still going strong in Rajasthan. But Delhi, which has been psychologically associated with India as such, was occupied by outsiders. And the tragic part is, since that day of 1192, it had been outsiders sitting on the throne of Delhi, barring a brief period of 3 weeks when Hemu sat there sometime in the 15th century. But even while the Sultanate was there, Indian kingdoms were flourishing and prospering. The other change came 300 years later when Babur, I would say a primitive rustic from Samarkand, came to India in 1526. The tragedy of the time, gentlemen, is that Babur had been invited by Indian rulers, including the governor of Punjab, including the Rajputs, to come and defeat Ibrahim Lodi, who was then sitting on the throne of Delhi. He came down to India and crossed his way across the rivers of the Punjab over 6 months. When he came to India, he had an army of about 24 to 30,000 men. When he, but he had with him three crucial aces. The first ace consisted of 24 to 30 kazans, heavy mortars. The second ace consists of 80 to 100 wazwans, light cannons. And the third ace consists of about 4 to 500 muskets. Inaccurate little rifles, but it was the first time gunpowder as a means of warfare was seen in India. Gunpowder had come to India from China, but the Indians did not realize its war fighting potential. So, in the Battle of Panipat, when Ibrahim Lodi's Afghans attacked Babur's army, the fire from the cannons scared the elephants, routed them. The cavalry moved from the side, firing their rifles till about 12 o'clock, when the heavy cavalry went through into that carnage, destroyed that army, and in just 6 hours, 300 minutes of war fighting, established a Mughal empire which lasts for 300 years. On the strength of cavalry and gunpowder. Ladies and gentlemen, I say the Battle of Panipat, though we remember it so much, in terms of Indian nationalists, it were two outsiders killing each other, and it honestly meant a damn. The Afghans were killing the Mughals, didn't matter. The greater tragedy arose the next year, in which the Rajput Confederacy under Rana Sangha was defeated in the Battle of Khanuva in an exact action replay of the same tactics followed earlier on. And the defeat of the Rajputs at Khanuva is what actually established the Mughal Empire into India. That was a greater tragedy than the defeat at Panipat. But, gentlemen, when we talk about the Mughal Empire, don't think it was hunky dory all the way. Not at all. Not at all. Because though the Mughal Empire was among the largest and the richest empire of North India, the Rajputs under Rana Pratap continued fighting. You all heard of the famous Battle of Haldi Ghati, in which Rana Pratap and his men held back Man Singh and the Mughal armies. Unfortunately, he left a strongly defended position at Haldi Ghati to come down to fight in open plains. And I say it was an unfortunate tactical mistake made by Rana Pratap. But the strategic victory lay in the fact that he never ever fought a pitched battle against larger Mughal forces again. He fought a guerrilla war for 20 years against the Mughals. He recaptured all his lost forts except for Chittorgarh. So, though the tactical battle may have been lost, I still maintain the strategic victory belonged to the Rajputs. And while the Rajputs were, I would not say flourishing, they were still thriving as well. Gentlemen, the Mughal Empire, look at the extent and compare it to the Mauryas and the Guptas. They could never make a headway in the east. Are you aware of the Ahom Empire, which flourished for 300 years in the Brahmaputra Valley? In the Battle of Saraighat, Lachit Borphukan defeated the Mughal armies. They were unable to make inroads out here. In the south, the Mughals tried for 80 years to make headway in the Deccan, which they eventually did at the time of Aurangzeb. But even as the Mughal Empire, the so called greatest empire of that time, was going on, in the south was the Vijayanagar Empire rising for 300 years, the richest and the most prosperous empire of that time. If you all go down today near Bangalore, go to Hampi, see the sites of the Battle of Talikota, which brought an end to this beautiful empire, this wonderful civilization. But what I want to bring out to you, gentlemen, is that Indian empires and kingdoms were flourishing hand in hand. And the strongest of those arose in the south when Shivaji created his Maratha Empire. And it is not the manner in which he created, gentlemen. Again, that call for nationalism. He was amongst the sons of India who raised that cry and said, these Mughals are outsiders. Let's unite and get rid of them. He created an empire based on the strength of two very important, often neglected aspects of Indian warfare. One was cavalry. His swift, fast cavalry, which they say moved half a day's march ahead of the enemy, always. Hit, attack, run, destroy. These tactics carved him an empire right from Madras on to Kandahar, the Marathas, and Calcutta. He realized the importance of the sea. Amongst the few leaders who realized how vital it was to have his fortresses guarding the sea, to have a navy. And gentlemen, this, more than Shivaji, the Peshwas who followed him, Bajirao the First, who was undefeated in 40 battles. I want to tell you, a very interesting story. The use of maneuver and cavalry by the Marathas has been considered amongst the best in the world. Read some of their battles. Read Palkhed, Bhopal. The tactics they followed, especially which Bajirao the First followed, was they would defeat a much larger force by moving little away from it, forcing that force to leave behind its cannons and heavy equipment, and finally tiring it out, coming from the rear, cutting it out, and destroying it, often without a fight. There's another thing I want to share with you. I'm an armored corps officer myself. And when I speak to the armored corps officers, I ask them now, who do you think were the greatest maneuverists? And I get names like Rommel, Montgomery, Patton. And I ask them one question. And who was the guru of Montgomery? The man who defeated Rommel. Gentlemen, these leaders who studied maneuver studied the campaigns of Bajirao the First. Montgomery had his campaigns in the notebook in his caravan, which you should read at night and study maneuver warfare. Gentlemen, our war fighting techniques too were very, I would not say advanced. We were very good, but in patches. But this Maratha Empire, which arose, extended most of India. This was an empire which actually could have been an Indian empire. But it came to a very abrupt and a very sad decline in the third Battle of Panipat, which I consider to be the biggest turning point of Indian history. 14th of January 1761, the blackest day in Indian history, when around 30 to 40,000 Maratha warriors were killed in one day at Panipat. And to understand that scale of that battle, you must understand why it took place. Here, the Maratha Empire had grown so vast that the Nawabs of North India, Sirajud-Dawla, Najibud-Dawla, they started getting panicky. Also, the Marathas had a system of taxation, Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, as you to call it, which they were protesting against paying this tax. So they approached Ahmad Shah Abdali of Afghanistan, who had just established the Durrani Empire in Afghanistan, and told him to come and wage a jihad in India. He called it jihad. It was nothing more than a mercenary war, because this gentleman was being paid 50,000 rupees per day when he was in India, and 2 lakh rupees per day each day they were engaged in actual fighting. But when he did come, he settled down in the area of Allahabad, Meerut. That's where the Nawabs were. And the Marathas, they sent a large Maratha army from Pune. It came all the way up to North India. 6 months it took. It reached Delhi, captured Delhi. It did not fight with Ahmad Shah Abdali at all. They didn't see each other. But the Marathas, after capturing Delhi, they went further ahead towards Panipat. And that was a fatal mistake, because Ahmad Shah Abdali and his allies, they crossed the Yamuna River, came behind the Marathas, and cut them off from their routes back to Delhi and the Deccan. He allowed them to starve and weaken in the North India winters for 3 months. Slowly, their supplies were being cut off one by one. The Marathas scored some marvelous skirmishes and local battles, but their strength was reducing by the day. And finally, on 14th January 1761, the chieftains got together and said, if you're going to be blocked, at least let's try to fight and break out of the encirclement in which we are. They tried. In the morning, they broke through. They even broke through the left flanks of the Afghans. But the issue was, I would say, already decided. They had been weakened by months of starvation. By the end of the day, 30,000 Maratha warriors were killed at Panipat. Another 20 to 30,000 women and children were taken as prisoners. And ladies and gentlemen, that loss, the Maratha Empire recovered from that loss, but it weakened that empire. This is the Panipat War Memorial. If you ever go to that area, go and have a look at it and see how it's been neglected. This is how we respect our history. Such a wonderful a site which shaped our country is been commemorated by a small brick monument such as this. Because what the defeat of the Marathas did was it opened the door for the arrival of the British. The British had come there, they were trading, and as they traded, they were exploiting the weaknesses and the dissensions and that infighting within the Indians. But they established their empire in the Battle of Palashi. It's not Plassey as those British call it, it is Palashi in Bihar. And how did they win at Palashi? They bribed Mir Zafar, the commander in chief of the Nawab of Awadh, Awadh that is Uttar Pradesh, who did not fight the British. And more than that, it's a very interesting story. In spite of the treachery within the ranks, perhaps the Indians might have still defeated the British. It was a much smaller force, but for a very small fact. The fact was that when we went to battle, our gunners did not carry their tarpaulins with them. At around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, when the battle hung in balance, it began raining. The Indian gunners could not fire the artillery. The British gunners, who had the tarpaulins, continued firing after the rain stopped, attacked under the covering fire, and won a victory which carved them an empire which lasted 190 years. Traitors and lack of a small detail like tarpaulin cost us so dear. Because when the British came, gentlemen, 190 years of, I would say, unbridled loot and plunder. They were the worst. Don't have any illusions on that. Don't be fooled by the railways and all the nonsense they made. Everything was done to take everything away from this country. But I say one thing, the British did not conquer India. They did not defeat India. They merely allowed us to defeat ourselves. And how did they do it? First, when they tried to make inroads in the south, it was Tipu Sultan. Though he's a reviled figure, but he fought a 30-year war against the British. And he attained some notable victories. There was a Battle of Wayanad, which very few of us are aware of, in which 10,000 British troopers were slaughtered in one night by his artillery in the Wayanad Pass. What did they do? They enlisted the Marathas and the Nizam of Hyderabad to fight against the Mysore kingdom of Tipu Sultan. Once they defeated Tipu Sultan, they turned the Nizam of Hyderabad against the Marathas. Then it was the turn of the Nizam next. One by one, they used each other to defeat each other. In North India, when the Sikh Empire was arising, they defeated Ranjit Singh's and his empire by using troops of the Bengal native infantry. And again, a 30-year series of wars, Aliwal, Mutki, Subrao, in which the such a prosperous and rich and thriving Sikh empire was actually virtually decimated. And in doing so, they had put the imprint across India. In 1857, our first war of independence took place. Who were the troops who revolted against the British? They were troops of the Bengal Native Infantry who arose. It was spontaneously. I think in Meerut, in Lucknow, Ambala, it was spontaneous uprising, and that was its strength and its weakness. Because it was so spontaneous, it had no central leadership. And what did they do? They enlisted the Sikhs and the Gurkhas, saying that these Bengalis are the same guys who defeated you, come and take revenge against them. So they used them, they used Indians to defeat Indians, ruled over India till 1947, used us to fight their battles in the First and Second World War, and when they finally left in 1947, gave us the partition of a country as the farewell gift. And when that partition took place, India and Pakistan became two independent nations. It also led to the first war of independent India in Kashmir, when Maharaja Hari Singh, who was undecided as to whether he would join India or Pakistan, the Pakistanis attacked Kashmir in the guise of Mujahideen, as they call them, of tribals. They were Pakistani army officers and men in civilian clothing. And the kind of atrocities they committed across the state is what led Hari Singh to agree to join India, sign the instrument of accession. In that war of Kashmir, which very few people are aware of, was India's longest war. 1.5 years it went on. And by the time it finally finished, we had recaptured most of the critical areas. But 1/3 of the state remained with Pakistan. That line of control came about, which has been a festering sore for 70 years thereafter. 47, 48 was the beginning, and then came the war and the complete and abject defeat of India in 1962. I repeat my words, the complete and abject defeat of India in 1962, which was the best thing that could have happened to a nation with wrong notions of pacifism. We were unprepared for that war morally, politically, militarily. And as they say, the Indian army was short of everything: weapons, ammunition, ration, clothing, everything. Everything except guts. But, ladies and gentlemen, guts win you tactical and local victories. The sheer force of that army, of the Chinese army, two armies, against a force roughly equivalent to a division in the east and a brigade in the Ladakh sector, we could not stave them off. When they attacked in both sectors, they virtually came to the foothills of Assam in the area of Arunachal Pradesh, Nefa as they called it then. In Ladakh, they virtually came up to Chushul airfield till they withdrew unilaterally. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something very interesting which you all must understand. When they withdrew from Arunachal Pradesh, they withdrew back to where they came from. In Ladakh, they have not withdrawn. The area they occupied, it includes almost 48 odd posts in the Ladakh region. They still have come, they pushed their line of actual control virtually to Chushul, Rezangla, and these places. Why? Because for them, Ladakh is important. It gives them access to Aksai Chin. And one thing I want to tell you, I'm coming from Ladakh. I was there just 2 weeks ago. The Chinese are very fond of saying, You should not forget the lesson of 1962. They should never forget that this is not 1962. It is 2024. It's a different ball game altogether. The Indian Army is a different proposition altogether. But never forget that lesson of 62 with the promise that it will never happen again. 62 was the first blooding, serious blooding of the Indian Army. And look at it now for the Pakistanis. We were a weakened nation, weakened army, defeated army. They have got beautiful pattern tank, saber jets, sidewinder missiles. Could they resist attacking in 65 to take over Kashmir by military force? What a glorious opportunity. And they came with an ace of succeeding. Till they were halted at Champ. They were halted in Punjab by the flooding of the fields, which gave 97 brand new pattern and Shafi tanks into our hands. And that war set the tone to India's greatest victory. Which it was actually, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not speaking it as a partisan Indian. I'm speaking it, at least I'm trying to speak as an objective historian. This war of 71 is the greatest feat of arms ever seen since World War II, except for the 6-day war between the Israelis and the Arabs. Study this war in great detail. It was a masterpiece of how to fight a war and how a nation could create a new nation in just 13 days. You all know the background to that. East Pakistan, West Pakistan, an idiotic travesty of geography. India in between. The way East Pakistan had been repeatedly exploited. And when Sheikh Mujibur Rahman won the elections in East Pakistan, he would have been the Prime Minister of both West and East Pakistan. He was put under arrest. The politicians were killed. The students were killed in East Pakistan. They launched genocide, which led to a flood of 10 million refugees into India. Something which could not be condoned. And gentlemen, I'm very fond of saying, at that moment when this happened, the war in Pakistan, that war, 71 war, was won on the 28th of April, 1971. When General Manik Shah famously refused to go into Pakistan in April, stating, I will get 100% defeat if we go now, and gave sound military reasons. Because that armored division that dispersed, we don't have ammunition. It is going to rain. Bangladesh will become a river. And the Chinese pass are open, they can come down. So when Mrs. Gandhi asked, when do you want to go? He said 15th November. She gave him that time. And the rest, as they say, is history. As India prepared, Pakistan is preparing as well. And the war was actually initiated by the Pakis because they launched an attack on Indian airfields on the 3rd of December. They hoped to destroy the IAF on the ground. Not a single aircraft was destroyed or damaged. And instead, that very next day, 4th of December, the Indian Army sunk their submarine, PNS Ghazi. I beg your pardon, the Indian Navy. The Indian Navy attacked Karachi and sunk 7 ships. It destroyed the entire oil storage facilities of Karachi and blocked it. and the Indian army advanced into East Pakistan in tremendous resistance. Our strategy was very good. We said we will only go first to East Pakistan and then focus on the west. And when we moved in, gentlemen, these Pakistani fortresses were fortresses. Very few of them could be captured. So we merely bypassed them and started going deeper towards Dhaka. You know, when a soldier is in defenses, he's very strong, he's very brave, he's got a lot of ammunition, 6 months he could have fought on. But when the enemy comes behind you, we all get disoriented. And the feeling of the army being behind them, the Pakistani had lost nothing much. They could have held on for six months. But the Indians followed it up with helicopter attack launch strikes behind Sylhet, in which just two companies blocked two brigades. They followed it up with a paradrop at a place called Tangel, just 70 kilometers from Dhaka. Again, just two companies. And followed it up with an airstrike, the actual strike, on the governor's bungalow in Dhaka itself. Ladies and gentlemen, what actually you see now, the Pakistanis had not lost very much in East Pakistan. But that psychological effect of all these coordinated actions actually broke the morale of General Niazi. Plus, there was a huge campaign, General Manek Shah, General Arora, General Jacobs, to convince him for unconditional surrender. And finally, on the 16th of December, at Dhaka Racecourse, 93,000 Pakistani officers and men of the Army, Navy, Air Force, the civil services put down their arms in the largest surrender since World War II. Pakistan is the only nation which has issued a postage stamp appealing to the world community for have its prisoners sent back to them. And gentlemen, you know, a lot of British people, a lot of foreigners say that they compare this Indian war to the action of the German army. They say it was such a fast blitzkrieg campaign. And I keep on saying is our campaign was much better. 13 days, we created a new nation. We moved out of Bangladesh without a single disciplinary case, not a single case of an army misbehaving or behaving in any manner, but as complete professionals and gentlemen. But our story did not end there. They came in 99, I think, a war which many of you who are watching will be more familiar with, because perhaps you would have seen this war on your television screens. And this war took place when our prime ministers were signing a historic accord at Lahore. And Pervez Musharraf, their chief of army staff, was planning a campaign which even his own prime minister was not aware of. It was a betrayal of the Indians, all right, but the Pakistani people, the Pakistani leadership, everything. And what was Pervez Musharraf's plan? His plan was he would occupy the highway leading from Srinagar all the way to Leh. Going through Dras, Kargil, Batalik, all these places. You can see this. You can see this yellow line. That is the road. He will occupy the heights along the overlooking that road, block that road. And he said by doing so, our position positions in Siachen would become untenable. There'll be no supplies going there. As far as the tactical plan went, yeah, it was a good plan. They even took us by surprise. But when we got to act together, they did not realize the vehemence of the Indian response. And look at these heights, gentlemen. 0.4875. They are talking about heights at 12,000, 14,000 feet where you cannot walk 7 feet without stopping for breath. And in these conditions, the Indian Army, young officers and men, won back this position. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll ever get the opportunity, go down to Dras. Go and visit the Kargil War Memorial there. We should go there to pay homage. Go to Dras, Rezangla, Zozila. The sites of these battles where of our countrymen have shed blood to preserve our nation. Visit it. I go there once a year to different places like these, just to salute the people because of whom we are one nation already. And remember, our wars have not ended, nor they're likely to end. India China, for all the talk of rapprochement, which I think will come about, is a live threat. And like I said, we must never forget 62. The powder must be always dry. But by going through these stages of Indian history, the story, I want to tell you one thing. I'm telling you this story so that you learn the lessons, good, bad, or indifferent, so that we learn from them and we do not have to relive them, but rather we write the history of our future. I come to an end of my talk, ladies and gentlemen. I truly hope each one of you would have enjoyed.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ajay. That was a wonderful presentation, and I thought that was really good. And you started from our prehistoric days till now, where you covered the whole lot. What stands out to me? What stands out to me is a story of great valor. Indians are known for fighting. What stands out is whenever we were together, we were victorious.
Exactly.
And right, and many times we might have lost a battle or a war, but we always won a strategic victory. And the political and the strategic victory is always more important in battle than actually winning a battle. So many lessons are there in our history, which today we are relearning, and we must go along as we are, facing again our old adversary, Pakistan and China. I'd like to add to all those who viewed, uh, you know, three more, I won't say battles, but three more uh, instances of conflict which we need to understand. And that's regarding China. Uh, Go back to 67. Natula, the
Hola.
Natula incident. Yeah. The- Is it 67 or 64? I'm
67, sir.
forgetting.
67.
67, yeah. 67, yeah. Oh, go back to 67. This was just 5 years after we lost a major war with it. And then, just 2 years after we had a major war with Pakistan. And we sorted them out. If you
Mhm.
go through the annals of, whatever happened in Sikkim, we sorted them out. And I've been there, I've served in that area, so I know the whole story well. That's something which we forget in our own history. And I'd like you to include this in your history next, wherever you
So,
give it. The next thing which we had a major skirmish with China was in Arunachal Pradesh in the Sundrangchok incident, Wangdung incident, as they
sir.
call. Now, the Chinese, to test our resolve, made a small intrusion. They just came across one nala and sat down on our side. And how did we respond? We responded by taking over all the, you know,
Builders.
heights of Arunachal Pradesh. Till date, till date, they cry that we hold all the heights in Arunachal Pradesh. And this is something which I read just last week, not last week, but 10 days back. And based on this, I've written an article. And I explained to all our viewers when I did this thing as how the Chinese view the border. They, they are worried that the border will never get resolved as the way they want it because we hold the heights in Arunachal Pradesh. That again reinforces the point which you said about the strategic victory part of it. Right. The third is Eastern Ladakh. Why is Eastern Ladakh 2020 a very important event in our,
Yes.
history? Right. It's been now 4 years. The Chinese are still sitting at Depsang. They're still sitting on Demchok, not allowing us access to go ahead. That will continue. But what happened in 2020 is something very, very important. And I think the people don't understand this. The Chinese gave us strategic confidence that we can handle them. Very few people understand the fact that it is only India which has fought the Chinese repeatedly over the past so many years. No other army has done that. As a nation, we gained strategic confidence to hold them where they are. And if you see the state of nations, till 2020, China was a nation whose GDP was going up, everything was going up. Right? After that, it is only going down. And it is our country which is going up. Very few people understand this. You had a military stalemate in Ladakh. You still have a military stalemate in Ladakh, right? But geopolitically, you're winning. It's something which people have to understand. Even in this military stalemate, you didn't do all this very easily. Initially, till the time we did the Kailash Range operation, everyone thought we were losing. We did the Kailash Range operation and the table turned. Right? So, what I think we need to understand our strengths, which we have derived from ourselves. It is the people of India who matter. And that is another thing. Yesterday, I was discussing India China asymmetry and talking, in modern terms, yesterday in Monexa Center. How do we respond to China's behavior and all that? One of the things I keep telling everyone is it doesn't matter what kind of a leadership we have, it doesn't matter whatever we have. I think India as a set of people, India as as a nation of so many different people with such a great civilizational thought process will always win. So I thought I'll put this across for your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
And yeah, we'll take a few questions, right?
Sir.
I see a lot of people um, have asked. So let us ask some questions. Let's take some questions and you answer them. Bharat has a glorious and very victorious, valorous itihasa of warfare spanning 15,000 years and counting. From ruling over the globe to the present Bharat, near about 245 BC, Yuvraj Kunala expanded the Maurya Empire to include present-day Yunnan and China. Cutting to the present, I believe we are right on time, on target as far as uh, global geopolitics is concerned. Your views?
Well, he's right. All right. We are a great civilization spanning millennia. And now we are, as you brought out, we are on time, on target. Yeah, we are still, I would put it, maybe a decade, if not more, behind time. But yes, we are on the right lines to attain the kind of position in the world I think which you're going to be getting. We will be one of the power centers of the world of this century. It is a given. We have to only continue in this manner. The economic success story is behind everything else. Continue that, remain strong and united as a nation. And then we may be behind time, but yes, we are on target.
Okay. Free thinker. Ask Indian Army bought Apache for $1 billion for high altitude operations. It failed miserably and crashed. Now Army is going for LCH. ये corruption क्या कहलाता है? Let me answer this. Don't bother.
Sir,
Free thinker, I think you should stop thinking freely like this. Then don't be idiotic. Okay? Let me tell you. If you don't know, देखो, a fool is, doesn't show he's a fool till he speaks. So you have spoken and you have proven what you are. You don't know, ignorance is a foolish thing to have. Apache is meant for a particular role, okay, in high altitudes. It is meant to carry guns, right? It is meant to carry heavy loads. It's the only helicopter of its kind. LCH is a completely different class of a helicopter. Light combat helicopter is completely different. Okay, there's a difference between Apache and light combat helicopter. Apache is a heavy combat helicopter, right? So don't if you don't know, don't talk. Yeah, I'll be grateful to you if you don't talk like this. Yeah, humble request to both General Sir, please make one or two lectures on Lieutenant General Saidat Singh, his life and his work and role in 71. Yeah, we'll take it on.
Noise
Whenever you're
71.
ready with it, yeah,
Yes,
whenever you
67,
are okay,
67, sir, which you mentioned. He was
yeah,
he was the GOC at that time.
architect. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, he was DOC 17 Div. He was the
Yeah,
architect of this whole thing. So whenever you're ready, Ajay will take it on. No, no
Pakka, sir,
problems.
100%.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, interesting. Only one kingdom was taken in Delhi. From that outpost, other kingdoms were attacked. Yeah, this is the thing about India. Whenever India let anyone get a foothold on it, he never went back. That's the
Yeah.
point. Okay. Uh, love the discussion. Thanks a lot. So nice. It was such a fantastic, presentation by Colonel Ajay Singh. That's why I brought him here. Okay. Uh, okay. Good question. Uh, great episode. Great effect. Effort. Please do more of these episodes from time to time so that our people can develop pride in our own kingdoms and warriors. We have
So,
been taught to respect foreign invaders. Yeah, you comment.
so I want to comment on this. Hey, thank you, JP. Respect foreign invaders. You know something? We have also been taught to respect foreign invaders who were never there. Haven't you all heard of the famous Aryan invasion, which never took place? We have been taught by the West that the Aryans came who were from Europe. There was no Aryan invasion. It was a migration of shepherds and villagers, a transmigration of pastoral herds, which was part of the story. They have no evidence whatsoever to prove it, but that had been ingrained into us. Unfortunately, that was part of the psychological indoctrination of the British to make Indians forget the glory and the greatness of a civilization. And one of the aims of General Shankar and me on Gunner Shot is to help us remember and relive our greatness once again.
Yeah. As Ajay sir, is it true that Abdali was shaken by the valor shown by the Marathas that he never sat in Delhi to rule?
Well, Swami, objectively speaking, no, that was not the case. The Marathas did fight a very valiant war, but they fought valiantly, but not well. Let me put it this way. That's how they allowed themselves to be cut off from their logistics. Abdali did suffer a lot of casualties in that battle. If the Marathas lost about 30 to 40 in the battle, they lost in the skirmishing of 6 months. The both sides lost around the same figure. He did not sit on the throne to Delhi to rule because, if you remember, he had come from Kabul, Kandahar. And immediately after the battle, he went rushing back to Kabul. Remember, he was a paid mercenary. He had not come here for a noble ideal. He was being paid money, 50,000 rupees a day, and 2 lakh for each of fighting. He went back to Kandahar because his brother had tried to seize the throne and he went to kill him out there. But the valor shown by the Marathas and the manner they fought, yes, to the to carry it further, in spite of the defeat, the Maratha Empire rose within 7 years after that. 7 years later, the Peshwas attacked Najib-ud-Dawla in North India. They desecrated his grave because he was the one who led down the country. They regained their former glory, but could never come back to the scale which it was before the defeat at Panipat.
Yeah. Mm, okay. Now let me see. Any interesting question? I don't see an interesting question. Okay. Let me see. Don't mind waiting 2 minutes. Yeah, I'd like to thank you for your contribution, Tibetan monk, and I'd like to thank. We had a person who joined us as a member. His name is not coming up. Right. Is there any other question? Last question एक ले लेंगे.
Okay.
अगर है तो, अगर नहीं है तो फिर we'll have to close. Okay, this is an interesting question. What is warfare in Turkish society non-dharmic in nature, and what is counter Bharatiya style?
I will try. Well, not by Turkish society. Let's look at it, on the northwest, the Hindu Kush Mountains, all those who invaded India. They were the Turks, they were from Turkmenistan, Central Asia's. They were not dharmic in the sense that they were invaders. Indian warfare, we were never invaders. That was the difference. The counter, gentlemen, which I feel right now is to discard this non dharmic style of warfare and realize that true defense lies in taking the battle to the enemy camp. If we have to go to the enemy territory to weaken him and destroy and negate a threat before it poses a strong threat to us, that is the counter.
Yeah. Okay, there's another interesting question. Let's go through it. Can our war history teach us something about our current and coming situation in Bangladesh? Or is Bangladesh situation unique in itself? Any lessons from the past, if there are?
Would you like to take it on, sir? I will.
Try attempt, then I'll take it
Okay,
on.
I'll try. Sure, sure. Okay, you know something about the Bangladesh situation? It was something everyone who's been in the know knew was going to happen. That anti-India sentiment was rising so much. Our raw agencies, our intelligence agencies, did not get wind of it, even though all the signs were there. You know, one thing about India is that we were responsible for the yeah, we did assist in the creation of Bangladesh, but we cannot expect them to be eternally grateful to us. A child is not eternally grateful to their parents for giving him or her birth. And somehow or the other, the feeling which one gets is the high handedness and that big brotherly attitude which India had adopted is what was not received too well. And the lesson to be learned from them is I honestly feel that this political turbulence will blow out in about a year, 2 years, if not lesser than that. It would happen. But the lesson to that is we have to ensure that our policies of firmness and gentleness, without being too big brotherly about it, have to be maintained not only with Bangladesh, but all our other nations as well. Our neighborhood first policy, which is the cornerstone of a foreign policy, I would say has not been a success. And that is something which should have us looking inwards.
Yeah. You see, the Bangladesh situation is unique in a long, many ways because Bangladesh is also an artificial creation. See, it never existed. We never had a problem with Bangladesh. If you look at East Pakistan till in the earlier days, either in the 47 war, which was fought entirely in the West, or 65, it was again in the West, this was
Yes.
never fought. The only war which was fought in the East was in 71 and end of story. After that, we really never had a war, and Bangladesh can never fight with us. But what happened in this period between 47 to say 71 and even later on is that you had this congregation of Muslims who wanted to be apart from India, right? And many of them probably went with a sense of loss that they couldn't be ruling India. Because at that, look at it from a different, let me give you a different thing to it. People say India should not have been partitioned. I don't think so. I think it is good it happened.
Yes.
Because
Agreed.
if it had happened, you wouldn't have been the India you were today. You would have been a bloody mixture of Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh.
True.
And that mixture wouldn't have been good. Okay. I mean, let's be very clear. All of us should be very clear about it. And in which, if these people were, you know, the Muslims didn't get their Pakistan and Bangladesh, and if it was undivided India, more than 50% would have been Muslims. We would have had different problems. Our socio-economic problems of this nation would have been completely different. The trajectory of this nation would have been completely different, right? So to that extent, I'm quite okay with the fact that partition happened, and we are where we are. So I think that's the way the thing is there. The way I look at it, entire this Bangladesh thing. Really speaking, there are no lessons from the past you can learn from Bangladesh, whatever the situation is. But really, the lesson you have to learn from this, from a past, is how to handle our northeast states. If you see the Battle of Ahoms, you see the battles which were fought, in the Manipur history, and the battle which was fought in Burma in Second World War. They all teach you how to handle northeast. That is what we have to be more focused and thinking about. So I'll leave it at that. Uh, I think we've covered a huge thing. Your last words, Ajay, and then we'll close.
Well, sir, I think it's been a wonderful discussion, and I always concluded one thing. There is one lesson of Indian warfare which I want to emphasize repeatedly. It is whenever we have been one and strong together, we have always won. There are so many divisions that there are more than enough people from outside and inside who are willing to exploit these. Is if as Indians we can be aware of that, I think if this is one of the lessons which you all carry home with you today evening, I think it has been an afternoon very well spent. Sir, it's been a huge pleasure being on Gunner Shot. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ajay, and thanks a lot for everyone who attended this. Very few people have come live. I am not disappointed, but I would request you to propagate it and give it to all your friends because this is something part of our history which will be there, and we'll keep coming back with more of history. Thank you. Good evening, and Jai Hind to all of you, and Jai Hind to you also, Ajay.